15-degree Midwest weather, 1, iPhone 0. Let's try this again. So this is our generator that we have on the trailer. I usually come out here in the middle of winter and start it up just to make sure everything's good, but this is the first year I've had it mounted on the slides, so I figured while I was out here I'd show you a video of how I have this all hooked up and wired to have internal control from inside the trailer. Now, first thing we did is get a set of drawer slides from eTrailer.com. Installed those in. They're bolted to the floor of the trailer. There's a wooden spacer in there. It's just a 1x. We had to get it up over the lip here for the door. So after that, I welded up this little box tube frame for the generator. Not my prettiest work, but it held. It held, so it continues to hold. I just got to take it off again and paint it this year. The generator is bolted to the frame, and everything's wired in. The two connections here are 120 volts and 12 volts. I'll get to that in a minute. So I had to convert this generator to electric start because it did not originally come with electric start. I got into racing lawnmowers, always wanted to have one but never did, and part of that is basically you take a lawnmower and you turn it into a go-kart. So I also learned a lot about go-karts at the time and found out that a lot of guys that make their own go-karts run these little 6.5 horsepower engines, commonly referred to as a Honda clone. And it was learning a lot about those go-karts that made me able to identify this as a Honda clone engine. It's an overhead valve, 6.5 horsepower, no name brand, Champion. It's branded as Champion for the generator. Basically, the Honda 5.5 horsepower that this is cloned off of has an electric start option. So I took the shroud off and I took the flywheel off behind it and looked on the side of the engine where the starter would mount, and the bosses are there on the engine block, but they weren't drilled or tapped. So I drilled them, tapped them, bought a starter on eBay and bolted that on. And I also bought the flywheel on eBay because the original flywheel did not have any teeth on it for the starter. Bolted that right up too, torqued everything down and put the cover back on. I had to modify it. There was a kit available that had a new shroud that had the cutout provision for the starter with an additional bolt-on cover, but that was like an extra $60 compared to just buying the parts. And it also had a key switch for the starter, which I didn't need, so I didn't do that. I'm going to make a cover for it eventually because I still have to take this all back apart again. I want to wire loom this as well. So we got a bunch of wires coming into here. This is the 12 volt line. We got high amperage and low amperage. This is the 120 volt line. The 120 volt line just plugs into the power output. We've got 12 volts DC running back in that low amperage bundle. The high amperage bundle runs into the battery compartment of the trailer where we have a deep cycle marine battery for the winch. That bolts directly to the starter. It's grounded back there. So there's 4 relays that run this in the switch panel inside. The first relay to the left there is the main power to the system, which is controlled by this switch. I wanted to make sure that if the generator was inside and the door was shut, that this would not be able to be started. The second one is the on-off for the generator. These small engines, in order to shut them off, you actually ground out the coil. So when that second relay is on, it disconnects the coil wire from the ground and allows the engine to run. The third one is the starter, which you push the button inside the trailer and it engages the starter and starts the engine. The fourth one is powered solely by this 12 volt DC power outlet. And what I'm using that for is when the generator is producing power, that turns on that fourth relay and disconnects the power to the starter button inside the trailer. This way, as long as the engine's running, you cannot hit that button and grind the starter, basically. So this engine, you also had to choke every single time you started it. Didn't matter if you ran it for 2 hours, you shut it off, you'd have to choke it. I got this little electric solenoid off of eBay from China, and I just wired that with the starter, so when you press the button and start the engine, the choke automatically turns on, the solenoid pushes the choke shut, and as soon as you let go of the starter button, the choke retracts and allows the engine to run. So, as I said, I like to fire this up every now and again and make sure that it's still running properly. I did put fuel stabilizer in it, but let's cut to the chase here, and we'll go inside the trailer and I'll fire this thing up for you. I had the WD-40 all the locks on this thing. Everything was all frozen up. Oh man, this floor's like ice. Okay, so in here's the control panel. I wanted to put it by the door, but we took that wall apart once already to install the electric awning switches, and I did not want to do it again. So the easy way was to just put it right here in the generator compartment, and I wouldn't have to run much wiring. So switch on. I've got two LEDs here. What I'm going to do is wire this one in eventually so that this turns on when the engine's running, and this one will turn on if the door is closed and you try to turn the switch on. You won't get power to this light. This light will turn on. That means you got to go outside and open the door. Let's see if it'll start. My starter doesn't sound happy. Huh. I'll have to figure that out. I wonder if the battery's dead in the trailer here. We did just use the winch to pull the car in here, so that could be it. Well, I used all the expletives in my vocabulary and got the starter working. So it still didn't want to go though. The fuel is turned on, so we're gonna give her a little bit of hot sauce here. I don't like using this stuff, but maybe it's time to take this carburetor apart after so many years of use. Not to mention it's been sitting for a long time and it's really freaking cold, but once she goes, she'll go. Let's see if she'll start now. Again, ice skating on this fake tile floor. Here we go. There we go. She's alive. We should have power. Uh-oh. She's warm-blooded. Stay alive. They might comply. Let's see if turning the lights on stalls it. Oh no, it doesn't. Cool. Alright, well I'm going to let her run for a little bit. But there you go. Just wanted to prove to you that that does work. Oh, I done it now. And there you go, guys. Thanks for watching the video. And I hope that this helps you in some way.